All right, picture this. You own 1 million square feet of polished marble, all under one massive roof. You've got hundreds of stores paying you rent, and a literal river of shoppers flowing past them every single day. The best part? You don't sell a single product. You don't stock a single shelf. You just own the floor that everyone else has to stand on, and you collect a massive check for the privilege. Sounds like the ultimate passive income machine, doesn't it? Well, welcome to our explainer on the hidden economics of owning a shopping mall. But here's the crazy reality we're diving into today. Beneath that beautiful glass ceiling lies a financial organism so deeply interconnected and fragile, it can look completely healthy right up until the exact week it dies. Seriously, if you peel back the contracts, the psychology of the hallways, and the hidden math of the leases, you discover an entirely different world. So we have to ask, is owning a shopping mall actually a license to print money, or is it the most elaborate financial trapdoor in commercial real estate? Section 1. The Real Estate Illusion. Okay, before you can collect a single dollar of that passive income, you actually have to buy the building. And the price tag is where the very first trap is hiding. Building a large regional mall from scratch, that can easily run into the hundreds of millions of dollars before a single store even opens its doors. But what about buying an existing mall? Well, there is a staggering billion-dollar gap in this industry between luxury Class A properties and dead malls. Because when you buy a mall, you aren't actually buying square footage. It turns out you are buying a bet on a zip code. Your massive investment is entirely dependent on the demographics, the local economy, and the spending power of the surrounding 3 to 5 mile radius. You know, I always just assumed a single billionaire owned these mega structures, but most are actually owned through a REIT, or a real estate investment trust. This corporate structure basically holds income-producing property and legally hands almost all of its profit back to shareholders every year, all in exchange for a massive corporate tax break. It's actually a brilliant move because it spreads the risk across dozens of properties. It allows ordinary investors, like you and me, to own a slice of 100 malls for the price of a cup of coffee without ever having to climb up a ladder and fix a leaking roof. But let's say a REIT pulls the trigger and buys a property. You inherit the leases the last owner signed, and you don't get to rewrite them. And buried deep inside almost every store's lease is a hidden ticking time bomb, the co-tenancy clause. If a major anchor store closes, the smaller stores around it are legally allowed to slash their rent or walk away from their leases entirely. So the day you buy the mall, it might look 100% full, but the entire financial structure is quietly wired to 1 or 2 massive anchor boxes. Pull just one out, and the floor literally gives way under everyone else. Section 2. The Hidden Business Model. So if the system is really this fragile and one anchor leaving can collapse the entire building, how do these mega structures actually generate billions in revenue when things go right? The answer lies in a highly secretive, 4-layered income machine, and this brilliantly illustrates exactly how counterintuitive mall economics really are. The revenue engine doesn't just rely on a simple flat monthly fee. It's built on 4 distinct pillars: base rent, percentage rent, common area maintenance, and a truly fascinating concept called position over space. Let's break these down one by one because this is where the genius of the model truly lives. Step 1 is base rent. Get this, a small specialty shop might pay $60 per square foot, but right before Sears went bankrupt, analysts found they were often paying around just $5. The store with the biggest sign and the most floor space pays roughly 1/10 of what the tiny artisanal candle shop pays. Why? Because the anchor isn't paying for space, it's paying for its name. The anchor drags customers through the door, and the owner is quietly renting out that foot traffic, while everyone else quietly subsidizes that massive discount. Step 2 is percentage rent. Once a store's yearly sales cross a specific target, which they call a breakpoint, the mall takes a small cut of everything sold above that line, usually around 6 to 7%. So the absolutely crucial point here is that the mall isn't just a landlord. It is quite literally a silent partner in every single cash register in the building. When the tenants thrive, the mall's revenue skyrockets. Then we have step 3, common area maintenance, or CAM. This one is brilliantly sneaky. A massive chunk of the costs to physically run the building, I'm talking cleaning the marble, hiring security, keeping those escalators moving, isn't actually paid by the owner directly. Nope, it is billed straight back to the tenants based on how much space they occupy. The massive operating costs are just cleverly shifted right off the owner's balance sheet. And finally, step 4, position over space. In this business, size and value are definitely not the same thing. Think of a tiny sunglasses cart right in the dead center of the busiest walkway. It might occupy less than 100 square feet, but because it sits perfectly in the path of every human passing through, it can be charged a far, far higher rate per square foot than a massive store hidden along the back wall. It is the secret goldmine of the mall floor plan. Section 3. The psychology of profit. But obviously, none of those cash registers ring if people don't walk past them. So how do you guarantee they will? Well, you engineer their minds. The modern American mall was shaped by brilliant designers like Alfred Taubman and Victor Gruen, who studied exactly how human beings move. They spaced the big anchor stores exactly 3 city blocks apart, ensuring shoppers walking between them would have to pass dozens of smaller shops. They purposefully placed escalators at the extreme ends of the hallways, so you're forced to walk the full length of the corridor. And they expertly mixed artificial lighting with skylights so you completely lose track of time. All of this highly specific physical design creates a psychological phenomenon called the Gruen Transfer. This is that exact moment when a shopper who walked in just to buy a simple phone charger gets subtly overwhelmed by the carefully engineered environment, completely loses track of time, and suddenly finds themselves buying a giant soft pretzel and 3 pairs of shoes. Sound familiar? Every single corner is mathematically designed to force movement, maximize storefront exposure, and ultimately increase your spending. Section 4. The fatal operational spiral. Now, for a century, a mall's true product was convenience. It was the only place you could compare 5 brands of shoes in a single afternoon. But when the internet destroyed that monopoly on convenience, it broke the massive department stores that the entire ecosystem relied on. Take Sears. They once had about 4,000 stores before filing for bankruptcy in 2018. The terrifying fallout from that? Roughly 80% of those Sears stores sat inside regional malls. When those anchors died, those co-tenancy clauses we talked about earlier triggered a devastating wave of rent reductions and lease exits. And this triggered what is known in the industry as the CAM spiral. Remember that common area maintenance bill the tenants pay? Well, the massive shared costs of running 1 million square feet don't just shrink because a store goes dark. The dark hallways still get cleaned, the empty parking lots still get plowed, and the lights still burn. So the remaining loyal tenants are forced to split the exact same massive bill among fewer paying stores. Rising vacancy quietly raises the cost of staying in business for everyone who stays, which simply pushes the next few tenants right out the door. It's a vicious cycle. To see how terrifying this invisible compounding domino effect is in reality, just look at these real-world case studies. Century 3 in Pennsylvania once boasted over 200 stores. Rolling Acres in Ohio once hit 98% occupancy. But once their anchors left, that fatal operational spiral began. Within less than 2 decades, fully packed landmarks devolved into rotting ruins. Vandals broke skylights, roofs collapsed, and the buildings were ultimately condemned and demolished. So the crucial point here is this chilling business metric. Occupancy is not the same thing as income. A mall can look 90% occupied and totally healthy from the outside, but if the real, paying, long-term tenants are secretly being replaced by cheap, short-term leases just to keep the lights on and stop those co-tenancy clauses from triggering, it is already dying. The organism is failing. Section 5. The ultimate retail lesson. So with online shopping eating retail alive, why does anyone still own these buildings? Well, because the exact same forces that killed the weak malls actually made the survivors incredibly strong. The owners who kept their buildings alive did it by fundamentally changing their product. They stopped fighting the internet on clothing prices and started filling the dead anchor boxes with things the screen genuinely cannot deliver. They pivoted to mixed-use properties. We're talking fine dining, gyms, urgent care clinics, movie theaters, and indoor attractions. Some even converted whole wings into luxury apartments. They stopped selling products and started selling reasons to physically leave your house. So let's bring this all together. From the parking lot, a shocking mall just looks like a massive building full of independent stores. But from the inside, it is a single, tightly interconnected financial system where every tenant's survival is quietly chained to everyone else's. The anchor doesn't just sell clothes, it sells the foot traffic that every smaller store depends on to breathe. Which brings us to one profound final thoughts. When you buy a shopping mall, you were never really buying a building at all. You were buying a reason for a crowd to gather. And the day that crowd stops gathering, the most valuable building in town becomes the most expensive thing in the world to walk away from. So the next time you walk through those glass doors, ask yourself, are you the customer or are you the product keeping the whole building alive? Thank you for joining me for this explainer.